What if I told you a movie released in 2001 predicted today's AI revolution?
Steven Spielberg's latest release, Disclosure Day, feels almost 30 years late to the UFO cover-up conversation. But looking back 25 years, the master director released a film that feels increasingly like a blueprint for our current reality: AI artificial intelligence. When we are collectively obsessing over the ethics of machine learning and synthetic art, a 2001 film about the moral rights of a manufactured child is more relevant now than the day it premiered. To understand how this film came together, you must look at the man behind the camera. For decades, Spielberg was Hollywood's undisputed architect of wonder and optimism. But to make his most prescient science fiction, Spielberg had to abandon that signature safety and explore a much darker cinematic language. His early career baseline, defined by films like E.T. and Close Encounters, framed the genre through a lens of childhood innocence and suburban safety. By the late 1990s, that bright aesthetic gave way to a much more somber and serious period of work. This wasn't a standard evolution. It was a forced mutation, caused by an unlikely partnership with his cinematic polar opposite, Stanley Kubrick. The project began with a 1969 short story by Brian Aldiss, envisioning a future of advanced robotics and a world drowning from climate change. Stanley Kubrick spent decades trying to adapt this into a grim, robotic version of Pinocchio, set in the ruins of a submerged New York. Kubrick stalled for years because the practical effects of the era, largely restricted to bulky industrial machinery, couldn't produce a synthetic child capable of carrying the film's emotional weight. The turning point came in 1999. Kubrick's sudden death left his most ambitious project orphaned, just days after the release of his final completed film. Spielberg chose to complete the movie as a tribute to his mentor, taking the rare step of writing, producing, and directing the project himself. The result is a hybrid of styles. Kubrick's DNA is visible in the bleak, gladiatorial flesh fairs, where robots are destroyed for sport, and in the cynical design of Jude Law's pleasure android, Gigolo Joe. Spielberg countered that coldness with advanced CGI and his own fixation on the trauma of the dissolving family unit. That trauma is concentrated in the performance of Joel Osment, who plays an abandoned machine desperate for a mother's love with an unsettling, unblinking intensity. By combining Kubrick's bleak view of humanity with his own sentimentality, Spielberg created a mutated cinematic cocktail that remains unique in his filmography. Completing this project stripped away the suburban safety nets that defined his approach to the genre. Over the next 7 years, he would release 3 more science fiction films. Films like Minority Report, War of the Worlds, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, each one leaning into the same desaturated, mature tone he developed while synthesizing Kubrick's vision. This era remains defined by the film's controversial ending, where an android is granted one final simulated day with his mother by a figure resembling the Blue Fairy. The fact that audiences still debate whether that finale is an act of mercy or a final cruel illusion suggests the film achieved its goal. It forced Spielberg's wonder to survive in a world that offered no easy answers.